outrageous. The Democrats, again, are doing everything they can to harbor and protect illegal immigrants who are committing crimes. They have released thousands of people who have committed crimes back onto our streets.
So, over the last 2 years, as crime here's been exploding, New York's been fueling the fire by releasing dangerous felons back out onto our streets, some of whom have gone on to cause irreparable harm to innocent people in our country, but were let loose by New York even after many of these gang members were found to be living illegally in America. But it gets even worse because New York is still releasing people who've committed some of the worst crimes you could imagine.
Several of the 6 migrant squatters released without bail. They are now back behind bars. They were part of a heavily armed group of migrants, but 6 were set free by a judge while the other 2 were being held due to prior arrests. But some of those 6, they also had prior arrests.
The administration says that they are going after what they call the worst first, individuals who are in this country illegally but have a known criminal record. But as we saw firsthand today, it is not stopping there.
This is not working out. They are coming in droves, and they continue to come in droves. They are repeated offenders of the worst and most heinous crimes. We've got gang members that have infiltrated our city, taking our city over.
They hurt the future of New York City.
Adams says President-elect Donald Trump's win made it clear that Americans want a secure border and are in favor of Trump's border policies. But Adams still refusing to comment on possible mass deportations.
And if you watched the hearing the other day, the Democrats were criticizing Mayor Adams for any type of cooperation. And I believe he hasn't cooperated enough because all the detainer requests have actually been denied up until this year.
So some of the most dangerous people on the planet are making their way to New York, where they know they'll be protected. And what nobody running this place wants to admit is that by harboring criminals, our sanctuary policies put the entire country in danger. As many high-profile capital crimes in America have been committed by those who at one point were jailed in New York and then released. And as a sanctuary city, our police, who do God's work, have their hands tied behind their backs the second someone in their custody is found to be here illegally, at which point they have no choice but to ignore federal pleas to detain dangerous fugitives and are forced to set them free, which has resulted in homeless immigrants lighting fires in our subway, dangerous gang members being released only to re-offend, and in one case these policies even caused a young woman with a bright future to lose everything she had, all because New York wanted to give America a big slap in the face by releasing a federal fugitive on his own recognizance, not because that person wasn't dangerous, but because he and many of these criminals were in the country illegally, and those are the people sanctuary cities exist to protect. And that brings us to the real reason sanctuary cities like this one won't give up their activism and have plans to release thousands of additional criminals the second they get their hands on them. Without criminals here hiding from ICE, what purpose does a sanctuary city even serve? If ICE were to arrest all the criminals here, our laws couldn't be used to further a progressive open borders agenda that puts every American at risk while empowering violent gang members and criminals who make money trafficking people into our country, while they hide in plain sight, blending into the background of sanctuary cities like New York that are enacting new rules as we speak to make ICE's job harder, while continuing to resist federal efforts to get dangerous criminals out of our jails and off our streets before they strike again. And as you're about to see, this has made New York the #1 destination for people with no other goal but to prey upon the law-abiding. So here we are at a local police precinct, and the cops here, they've got such a tough job. They're already persecuted by local progressives just for getting up in the morning and putting on their uniforms, but they've also got to surrender and stop doing their jobs entirely when a criminal is located and it turns out that person's not supposed to be in the country. And these backwards policies have given us a criminal population larger than the entire populations of some cities and towns in America.
Nearly 60,000 migrants with felony convictions convictions or pending charges are living in the Big Apple, and more than 1,000 of those are suspected gang members. Critics of the city's sanctuary policies argue that limiting cooperation with the Fed.
That's astounding. 58,000 people living here who are in the country illegally, and 1,000 of those folks are gang members. But in a city that's made it its mission to protect criminals, is anyone really surprised that criminals are coming here? And for the last decade, when criminals have found themselves in the back of our police cars, ICE has not been allowed to come and get them. Of course, ICE asks if they can come get the person. That's called a detainer request. But our police are banned from cooperating. They're forced to let people go. Now, they're not literally opening the backs of their police cars and just releasing these people out into the street. No, but instead they take them into custody and put them through our kids' clubs legal system here that then releases those people secretly without telling the federal government. And in a lot of cases, you've got dangerous people who should be incarcerated that our laws say, no, you're not a criminal, you're free to go. And this has led to innocent people getting hurt in other parts of America.
Prosecutors say that's the suspect, an undocumented migrant, before he found and attacked nursing student Lakin, who was out on her morning jog.
The trial in Georgia continued today, with video being played allegedly showing illegal immigrant Jose Ibarra lurking around a University of Georgia apartment complex. It shows the man going to the door of a student apartment. Then he goes to the back of the building to peep inside the ground level after a full hour of...
So this is an incredibly tragic story, but what you need to know is the culprit, he was first arrested and held in New York City, and then he was let go, in spite of the fact that he was dangerous. And after that happened, he then went on to do the unthinkable to someone who was innocent, which never would have happened if this were a law and order city that wasn't protecting the bad guys. But sadly, with 60,000 criminals choosing to make this their home, this isn't the only story of its kind. And as you're about to see, our laws even release people who the police catch with illegal weapons.
3 were taken into custody by ICE agents. Authorities say they were part of a heavily armed group of migrants. 8 were arrested last week, but 6 were set free on supervised release by a judge, while the other 2 were being held due to prior arrests. But some of those 6, they also had prior.
So this story took place about a year ago, and you had 8 gang members who were caught waving around illegal items in the middle of the street, and that's not all. When police arrived on the scene, they fled and they ran into an apartment that they were squatting in, and they hadn't paid rent there for 6 months. Inside the place, there was all kinds of criminal activity going on, yet after the NYPD arrested these guys, a judge let the majority of these gang members go free. ICE agents were able to catch these guys, but only after they found out about it in the New York Post. The initial bust and release were so outrageous that it made the paper, and they saw it and said, hey, let's go back to these gang members' squatted house and see if they come back. They did, and that's where we get the footage of them being arrested, this time for good.
They chased that man into a basement apartment, and they make the arrest. That man was out on an attempted murder from Yonkers months prior, and he's an asylum seeker. He's a migrant. In that melee, if you will.
So as it turns out, one of these criminals was charged with attempting to seriously hurt someone in another part of this state, and he was still free. And the others were all out on this thing called supervised release. And supervised release is when non-law enforcement community organizers supervise criminals between when they're released and when they're supposed to come back to court. Yet it looks like these community organizers either didn't do their job or were incapable of supervising armed gang members who went right back to their old tricks the second they got free. One of the guys that got arrested was first caught shoplifting and then released. Then 3 months later, he gets arrested again with an illegal weapon and also gets released. And the worst part about all this is that the federal agency tasked with keeping everybody here safe doesn't find out about these criminals, who they are, or where they might be until it's already too late.
Well, now some of them have been arrested by ICE. ICE came in. Now, usually NYPD cannot, because we're a sanctuary city, cannot notify ICE. But, you know, it was the front page of the New York Post yesterday. ICE didn't need any notification. Anyway, this is happening.
Our stupid city forces federal agents to check the internet to figure out where they need to go and do their jobs. That's dumb. That's what you call stopping people from doing their jobs. And in this case, their job is to keep people safe. And sanctuary city advocates, like whoever put this sticker here, will tell you that our laws just make the city a safer place. But how on earth is that possible when all our laws do is release people who are so dangerous they should be kept in jail, possibly forever? And obviously this is a backwards system of the highest order, but the worst part about it is it's still going on. We're still releasing criminals, even though the federal government has recently passed laws to try and stop that from happening. So probably the most significant development in the battle over the border, illegal immigration, and all of the crime sanctuary city policies promote is the Laken-Riley Act, which was just passed. And it requires the Department of Homeland Security to detain anybody in the country illegally who's been accused of committing a crime. Now, you'd think that a law like this would be common sense, but not in New York City, where we release people who are accused of committing crimes all the time. But sadly, many New Yorkers are righteously offended by the idea of putting somebody in jail when they're accused of a crime and they're not supposed to be here.
The Constitution is for Americans.
Adams also making it clear that he would be open to deporting migrants who commit crimes, not just those who are convicted of their crimes. Meanwhile, immigration advocates are blasting Adams for his comments.
So Mayor Adams, he's 100% right. The Constitution is for Americans. It doesn't apply to somebody who happens to find themselves in America after they broke the law to get here. This is total 100% common sense. But statements like that have led to calls from local progressives for the mayor to step down, with some people claiming he just doesn't represent New York and that by throwing away our sanctuary city laws, he's made the city less safe, even though the very people making New York City less safe do it again and again, repeatedly. And these local activists, they would prefer criminals stay out on the streets where they can do whatever they want, possibly committing more crime, than for them to be in jail where they can't do any of that.
Mayor Adams is wrong. He's ripping a page out of Trump's playbook and stoking fear and spreading misinformation.
Now, Adams.
I'm sorry, but the only people spreading misinformation are those who think that releasing criminals who are dangerous makes our city and our country safer. It doesn't. But because these people hate President Trump and are still shocked Vice President Harris was never made President Harris, they've decided to embrace insanity in the form of compassion. And they claim that by opposing deportations of criminal illegal aliens, that they're standing up for immigrants and immigrant communities, regardless of their immigration status. But sadly, the only community they're standing up for is the criminal community of 60,000 people who are living in our city illegally.
Since President Trump got reelected, the song remains the same. There's absolutely no changes coming to New York anytime soon until we move in ICE and they get to cooperate with our police, which is what we desperately need.
So anybody with common sense who's keeping an eye on this, they're not surprised at all by this critical mass of crooks we've got living here. Of course criminals are going to come to a place that has laws that are in their favor and protects them. Of course criminals are going to do everything they can to make their way to a place that won't put them in jail when they steal from somebody or when they steal from a store or commit any type of crime. And even with the massive number of anti-weapon signs you see around here, our judges often look the other way when somebody gets caught with one of these things. A crime that is supposed to be a 3.5-year minimum sentence. But the reason the city just keeps getting more and more dangerous is because our leaders believe in defunding the police and standing up to ICE. A situation that's terrible for the law-abiding, but again, great for criminals. They're the only beneficiaries of policies like this. A problem magnified by the fact that many of these gang members get to live for free in city-run asylum shelters regardless of their behavior. Been arrested? Got warrants? Do you put people in ambulances for fun? None of those questions are asked to people before they're moved into facilities next to women and children. But sadly, as a sanctuary city, we're not allowed to ask people where they're from or what they've been up to. Nope, can't do that. And the reason for that is here, the right to shelter is a right, and it doesn't go away if somebody behaves poorly or puts other people in danger just by their presence. And the worst thing about this is that many of these gang members, like this Trende Aragua, we know that these gang members live in our shelters, and we know that trafficking people is their specialty. This is a gang where the members are taught to see everybody around them as potential human capital. capital that can be used to further the criminal ambitions of the gang itself. And they've been on a massive recruiting spree in our shelters, telling people to join their gang and go steal stuff, or be branded an outsider if they won't comply. Something nobody who lives in a facility that bans police from entering would ever want to hear. And sadly, the trafficking situation in this city is now so bad that if you go to the bus terminal where many people first arrive from the southern border, you'll see signs all over the place warning people about trafficking and telling people that if they see something, they should say something. Why would those signs be there if this wasn't an ongoing problem in our city?
This is not working out. They are coming in droves, and they continue to come in droves. They are repeated offenders of the worst and most heinous crimes. We've got gang members that have infiltrated our city, taking our city over, and we will not.
So the beneficiaries of our sanctuary city laws are the criminals and the politicians who get points for advocating for these policies in the name of compassion. But the losers, that's everybody you see out here on the street. And everybody in America. Nobody benefits from criminals getting arrested and being protected and hidden from deportation, especially when these people often go on to reoffend in ways that are even worse than what they did the first time. And this has led to the creation of a system that just enables gangs, traffickers, and the very cartels and handlers of many of these victims to continue making money off them after they get here. What do you think about that? Are New York's sanctuary city policies that release thousands of criminals putting the entire country in danger? Or are the activists right? Are these sanctuary policies a good thing? Should every city in America be a sanctuary city? What do you think? Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.